Hello everybody, good to see you all again. Picture two gentlemen. They both want to put on muscle mass, be healthy and stay lean at 10% body fat. Let's say that gentleman number one, let's call him Josh, works out with high intensity 4 days a week at a minimum, eats a very clean diet of wholesome, nutrient-dense organic foods, and refrains from eating any processed junk food like crisps, sodas, candy, cookies, you name it. He drinks 4 liters of water a day and is very well hydrated. Now let's say that gentleman number two, Jim, works out once and maybe if he gets motivated, twice a week. Sometimes he doesn't go at all. He is not as disciplined and rigorous with his diet. He's addicted to carbs, junk food, processed food, you name it. He also drinks a lot of alcoholic beverages. He doesn't drink much water, if any water at all. He drinks energy drinks and chocolate milk instead. So he's not well hydrated, and the fried foods, the crisps and the alcoholic beverages dehydrate him even further. And that's not going to lead to very good health outcomes. So, obviously, Jim, the lazy one, is not going to reach his goal of putting on muscle mass, being healthy, and attaining a lean physique. But Josh, the determined one, he will. Jim is going to stay unhealthy, out of shape, and is going to get ill and maybe even depressed. Josh is going to be healthy, strong, confident, and energized. Now, is that in some way unfair? Because we all hate to see Jim being ill and depressed. But is there something that we should do to change his situation for the better? Is there a way in which we should interfere? And I would say no. Why should we? Every action has a consequence. If you want to bring about a particular outcome in life, there are requirements for it. If you want to stay healthy, look great, feel great, it requires effort. It requires the appropriate kind of action. And you have to back off from doing the things that will impede you, hold you back from achieving that goal. If you don't want to put in the effort, you will not achieve those goals. And it's as simple as that. If you choose to do destructive things, like eat processed food and drink alcohol, there are consequences for that as well. You will be unhealthy, you will have very little energy, you will look like crap and you will feel like crap, and you will be in the firing line of many serious health problems, which ultimately leads to low self-esteem and has a detrimental impact on your life in general, especially with regard to what you can achieve in life. And these things are going to hold you back even further. So, is that in some way unfair? No, that's exactly how it's supposed to be. So, where am I going with this? The natural incentive should be there to do those things that will help you achieve that which you seek to achieve. And the deterrent should be there to prevent you from acquiring that which you don't seek to acquire, like poor health. And that's called taking responsibility in life. Taking responsibility means saying, I know where I want to be in life, and I know what I'm required to do in order to get to that point. And I'm going to willfully choose to do the things that are going to get me where I want to be, and willfully choose to refrain from activities and decisions that will prevent me from getting where I want to be, or activities and decisions that will get me where I don't want to be at all. And any consequence, desired or undesired, is mine and mine alone to bear. And I'm only responsible for my own decisions. I'm not responsible for other people's decisions. Because my mistake is my mistake. Why should it be other people's mistake as well? Why should other people have to suffer with me as a result of a mistake that I made when they didn't do anything to deserve that? So, when you try to level the playing field, so to speak, make things fair for people, with government stepping in with all kinds of supposedly benevolent programs, which are based on violence and coercive imposition, like the welfare state and free healthcare, and nothing is ever free. Somebody is paying for it. Somebody is spending time, energy, and effort to create it or to make it available. It's not the politicians reaching out into their own pockets and paying for it, it's them reaching out into your pockets and paying for it. So when you start giving people a safety net in the form of welfare benefits, you're saying that people no longer have to be responsible for taking care of themselves and getting by in life, and that the collective or the government is now responsible for them. And I'm not going to touch on the plethora of the horrible things welfare does to people in this video extensively, but when somebody on welfare is engaging in self-destructive behavior, which happens a lot, is making those decisions that will prevent them from getting where they want to be, or decisions and activities that get them where they don't want to be at all, like doing drugs, drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, too much leisure, they have no reason to care about the outcomes, because the consequences are no longer for them to bear anymore, but mine and yours. The collective is now responsible for them, which means that his mistakes become our mistakes. When normally, he would have that natural incentive to care for himself better, because the deterrent of not wanting to starve as a result of a compromised condition would be there to prevent you from engaging in those activities. I'm not going to drink alcohol, smoke cigarettes, and do drugs and eat things that don't belong in my body, like processed food, not only because I want to be healthy, but because my performance at work would plummet, and I would lose my credibility, and ultimately nobody would hire a drunk or a drug addict. So I'm naturally disincentivized from doing that. When you tell people, hey, you don't have to work in order to get by in life, you can just get a welfare check. And all you have to do is tell the bureaucrats how helpless and incapable you are of producing anything of value. And that doesn't result in much empowerment, does it? So now you remove that incentive to be more careful and prudent in life and give them the green light to go wild, since they're no longer bearing the consequences. The taxpayer is. And the same applies to free healthcare. Healthcare is expensive, good quality healthcare. And in some ways that's a good thing. Now, why is that a good thing? Because it's so expensive, I have a reason to put in some effort into learning how I can prevent myself from getting into situations where I would need it. Because the full price, the consequence is for me and me alone to pay. I am responsible, nobody else is. So what I do, I make sure I only eat organic, wholesome foods, and that can be a very expensive lifestyle, but it's an investment that is much cheaper than the price I would pay if I ate processed artificial foods and drinks. And I also make sure that I'm very well hydrated, that I drink 4 liters of water every single day at least, that I filter my water properly with a reverse osmosis filter, for instance, which can be expensive, but it's an investment that is much cheaper than the price I have to pay if I drink tap water that is filled with heavy metals, microplastics, pharmaceuticals, and all kinds of other harmful substances. I stay away from toxic cleaning products, I make sure that I go outside a lot, I work out a lot and stay in shape, and I study natural healing methods as well, and protocols to learn how to take care of myself, or when I ever have a family to take care of, when undesired health outcomes do occur, like learning about healing solvents, liver decongestion, fasting, elimination diets, etc., which give you much better outcomes than allopathic medicine ever could. And it's much cheaper as well. And I thank Dr. Andrew Kaufman for doing what he does, and I'm honored to help him out with his endeavors because he specializes in this. But when you have free healthcare, that incentive to be rigorous and to do your best to prevent bad health outcomes from transpiring basically vanishes for most people. Because hey, why live such an unerring lifestyle and be restrictive, which is a completely childish worldview? It's not rigorous and strict, it's called taking responsibility for your own health. But why be so restrictive if I can get free healthcare when I do get sick or break my leg? So people again start being less careful and less prudent, start acting less responsibly because they don't have to. The collective is now responsible, i.e. any mistake you make is not yours to bear, but for the taxpayer to bear. And that is why so many people act so irresponsibly and are so childish. The essence of being an adult is taking responsibility. But when people are being taken care of, when the taxpayer is responsible for their actions, and the taxpayer has to bear the consequences of their actions instead of them, they don't have an incentive to be a responsible adult, but have a green light to act like an ignorant child, regardless of their age. So not only do you start getting very long wait lists at the hospital because people are going there when they don't really need to, when they have very minor conditions, things they could easily take care of themselves. But hey, it's free, I don't have to pay for it, so why should I? And people who do have serious life-threatening health conditions can't get any immediate treatments because of those other people who are going in for conditions that aren't as severe. And again, if you didn't have free healthcare or anything closely resembling it, people would have a legitimate incentive to actually be more careful and to take health seriously. With free healthcare, you remove that incentive completely because they're no longer paying the price for choosing not to educate themselves and staying ignorant. The taxpayer is. But to get back to the point of manifesting things in life you want to manifest by learning what the requisite steps are and then taking right action to get it done, which I call the real law of attraction, it's not different when it comes to freedom. People say they want to be free and happy and have peaceful lives and want to live and let live. Yet at the very same time, they continue to support the existence of a centralized ruling class, so they can impose their opinions on other people through the voting booth and have all kinds of benefits like subsidies, free stuff and everything that'll give them a leg up at the expense of others, and wanted to have a monopoly on the provision of certain goods and services, which shuts out competition in the line of production, whether it's security, conflict resolution or education, and leads to poor quality of production, ineptitude and scarcity in things that people need, and surpluses in things that people don't need, because it can fix prices arbitrarily and set them very high, since it doesn't have the information that prices give you about the demand for such goods and services, and lack thereof, and the lack of competition doesn't give them the incentive to make the most out of their productive efforts, and to treat its customers with politeness and respect, because they don't have to worry about competitors carrying away their clientele as a result. And we'll talk about monopoly another time in a more thorough and comprehensive video about why it's so destructive. But the point is, people say they want freedom and happiness and prosperity and peace, yet they're doing the exact opposite of what they have to do with the intention of manifesting what they say they want. But when people say, why do I have to educate people about voluntarist principles and why we shouldn't have a ruling class? Why not just let them suffer? Screw other people, they wanted this, didn't they? Well, the problem with that is that you and me will suffer as a result. And I want to be free, I want to live a prosperous and peaceful life, and there are requirements for that. Those requirements are that I educate as many people as I can about self-ownership, voluntary assent, and free market principles. If I don't, I'm not going to reach that goal, am I? So don't just learn about these concepts, learn how to teach them to others and start spreading the truth. But let's move on to another example because it can illustrate a lot about life and the concept of equality and fairness, and it's basically applicable everywhere. Picture two other gentlemen, Evan and Michael. They both want to have a prosperous life. They both want to be independent and wealthy. They both work manual labor full-time jobs that they both hate. Now, Evan, he gets up at 4 a.m. every single morning to learn a new skill. He puts in the time to look at the market to find out which skills will get him more money than he earns now with his current job, and he doesn't like his current job. or he tries to invent something new that will improve other people's lives and in turn results in a lot of income for himself because many people want to pay him for it. And he doesn't spend any time on leisurely activities. He doesn't go out drinking, he doesn't go out partying, or indulging in any other kinds of leisure consumption. He instead allocates all of his remaining time and attention outside that of his job to work on his goal of starting his own business by selling goods and services that are scarce and that people really need and would pay him lots of money for. And he does this consistently, every single day, relentlessly, to put in the work to eventually be able to innovate something valuable. He also saves a lot of money by spending it on courses and investing in his goal, rather than spending it on frivolous ends like leisure and entertainment, things that will not get him where he wants to be, or will prevent him from getting there. Now, Michael, the other guy, would also like to earn lots of money. And he also doesn't like his current job, but he doesn't allocate his remaining time and attention to learning skills and looking at the market to find out which field of interest would yield promising results in terms of income. He instead allocates all of his remaining time and attention to leisurely activities a lot. He goes to parties every weekend, he gets drunk a lot, he fornicates on a regular basis, and in his remaining time he just scrolls on his iPhone and just sits there watching entertainment and has like 11 hours of screen time on his phone every single day. Now, obviously, Evan, the hard worker, is going to achieve his goal, which he aspires to reach, because he puts in the work to meet the requirements for it. Michael, the lazy guy, is not going to achieve his goal because he doesn't put in the work. He doesn't make an effort to meet the requirements. And as a result, Evan is going to become a millionaire and Michael's going to stay where he is. Now, is that in some way unfair? No, it isn't, because that's exactly how it's supposed to be. So, this is the thing about egalitarianism, which is based on an envious and resentful attitude towards the fact that some people have more than others, and that we should take political action to right the wrongs of society, i.e. to appropriate the wealth of people who want to follow in the footsteps of Evan, the hard, diligent worker. And so people go to the legislature to enact new laws to massively tax the rich, the Evans. And you see all these stickers all over the place with "Eat the Rich," and all of these people, egalitarians, socialists, the political left, have no idea how human nature or the economy works, because the economy and human action are inexorably and inextricably interwoven with each other, and I'll show you why. When you tax people for being more productive, you essentially punish them for being productive, because taxation is not voluntary. You have to hand it over to the ruling class whether you want to or not. And so you give people like Evan, the hard worker, the incentive to just take his creative potential that he built up over a span of many years, his physical capital, his entrepreneurial skills, his work ethic, his ingenuity, and his jobs that he offered, and he takes it overseas, to there where people are not that envious and bitter and call for the states to steal his money to give it to them for free. And so whenever countries do this, whenever they start nationalizing the means of production, which is especially true in many third world countries, which is why the standard of living remains so low there, their government just starts stealing businesses under the guise of fighting exploitation. When they start levying more taxes, start enacting more regulations and red tape, they essentially keep out productive and innovative people, which build businesses and create jobs and create progress in a society, the kind that most people rely on to make a living, and in doing so lower the standard of living in their country. And when politicians try to get elected and bait people with, if elected, I'm giving you free money and free this and free that, which massively appeals to people, by the way, who don't understand anything about the economy, where is that money supposed to come from? Government doesn't create things out of thin air. Everything it acquires and possesses, whether it's money or other resources, It steals from productive people who rightfully acquired it. So whenever people vote for welfare benefits, free money essentially, or free education, that money is taken out of the pockets of productive people and put into the pockets of people who didn't do anything to produce that money. And in terms of incentives and disincentives, you're disincentivizing people from being productive. Well, I'd like to start a business of my own, but because of all the taxes and regulations and hoops that you have to jump through, I'll stay in the workforce instead because it's less cumbersome, even though it doesn't have to be. And I would like to work 70 to 80 hours a week to save up money to start investing, but I'll get taxed more and essentially will be left with less than if I worked 40 hours. And as a matter of fact, I work 40 hours now, but people get more money on welfare benefits. So why would I even work at all? You're incentivizing people to not be productive or as productive as they could or would want to be. And you're punishing people for being productive. And in turn, instead of people allocating time and attention to being productive, creating and innovating, they allocate time and attention to leisure and consumption instead. Because why even bother trying to be productive if I'm not going to get anything out of it? And since I'm essentially not allowed to be more productive, I'll just waste my time instead on being a consumer rather than a producer. You have fewer entrepreneurs and in turn fewer jobs, and fewer jobs means more unemployment, and that leads to a lower standard of living and increased poverty. So you will have less Evans, less innovative, productive, creative sources of wealth, and more Michaels, more consumers, because you're disincentivizing people from being an Evan, the responsible hard worker, and you're incentivizing people to be like Michael instead, the disorganized consumer. Egalitarianism is bullshit. The only egalitarianism that exists is that this law of cause and effect applies to everybody universally. And you can either understand it and live in harmony with it, to not suffer in life, or choose to remain ignorant of it and suffer as a result. Now, when it comes to acquiring goals, sure, some people might have a head start. They might have inheritance, or they grew up in better conditions. Okay, and does that somehow prevent you from achieving what you seek to achieve? Do you really need there to be a ruling class to take the money out of the pockets of those people with a head start, which is an abstract term, and give it to you because otherwise you would never be able to get anywhere in life? Without the forceful intervention by governments, you're not able to get anywhere in life? Isn't that a horrible way to look at yourself? That others are up here and that without some third party giving you privileges, you will always remain down here. And will never be able to get up here without that third party because apparently you're not capable or whatever stupid excuse you happen to give yourself. So that's exactly what the political left, socialists and egalitarian movements instill in its constituency, that you are a victim, that you are incapable, that the people they demonize are better than you, and that without them, their party, their movements, whatever, you won't get anywhere in life. Without their helping hand of forceful interventionism, you will never achieve anything in life. Because come on, you're a woman or you have that skin color. You won't get anywhere in life without me giving you privileges and making things easier for you. That has got to be the most disempowering thing I've ever heard, and this is not me ascribing motives. This is literally what all of their endeavors imply. As Thomas Sowell used to say very appropriately, there is no free lunch. So when people look at all the poverty around the world and want to do something about it, and I used to be that way and I'm still that way because I genuinely care, but I also paid attention to how the economy works and how human psychology works, and I knew that you're not going to fix that through egalitarian and socialist policies with more government coercion and violence. The reason why there's so much poverty is exactly because of egalitarian and socialist policies, because of corrupted government institutions, and because of government intervention in general, which scare productive people away, incentivize them to leave or to not come there from the outside, And all of the new jobs that they would have created, which would have given people who have no source of income an opportunity to make something of their lives and their future. And this is why so many people fled East Germany during the Cold War, which had a socialist economy, to go to West Germany, which had a largely free economy to some extent. And this is why they built the wall, because so many productive, innovative people were leaving and they knew what kind of ramifications that would have on their economy. And this is also why so many European itinerants were going to West Germany until 1961, because they had the most prosperous society in Europe from 49 until 66, until they also started becoming more socialist after 69, which eventually ruined their economy, and they eventually had to start freeing up the economy again in 82, which brought them back to some sort of equilibrium. Now, why is this? When people, competent, capable and productive people, want to make something of themselves and don't want to be dependent on others, and especially not when the things they receive are taken from others involuntarily, and want to build their fortune themselves and have a prosperous future free of coercion, and want their privacy to be respected, they favor the freest countries with the most opportunities. Equality and equity in the egalitarian sense of the words are nonsense. Some people will always have more than others, and if those people acquired it rightfully and by way of contractual agreements and voluntary exchange and cooperation, and not by force or fraud, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, that's exactly how it's supposed to be, if you ask me. Because otherwise, what's the point of even putting in any effort to get a better life? If you can have some ruling class steal money from other people and give it to you without having to do it yourself and feel bad about it because they wrote down on a piece of parchment that you have a right to something you didn't even produce. So the point is, actions always have consequences, and if you want to achieve a certain result, there are action steps that you are required to take, and the beauty of that is that you will attain that result from putting in the effort. That's your incentive, that's your driver. When you willfully choose not to, that will result in outcomes as well, but those are probably not the outcomes that you desire. And if you know, in hindsight, that a certain decision will lead to an undesired outcome, and you willfully choose to make those very decisions, then I hope I won't have to tell you what happens then. When you try to mangle with this and try to artificially level the playing field and make things fair, so to speak, with government coercion and violence, you will always have disaster. And in terms of head starts, sure, it might be more difficult for some individuals to achieve a particular goal, and it might be easier for others. But a strong individual doesn't let that hold him back or serve as an excuse not to pursue his goals. So what, I grew up in a third world nation due to all the corruption and government fighting exploitation. So what, I have to put in more effort. I'm going to go out there and do it anyway, and I'm going to prove everybody wrong. And nobody is going to stop me from achieving my goal of getting a better life. And I don't need government violence. I don't need a teacher in the classroom to treat me fairly because I'm capable, I'm strong, and I can rely on myself. And the victory will be even sweeter. And a weak person says, well, I could get to where I want to be myself, but the government can get me there much quicker by forcing other people to give me privileges. Because what's the point of even trying to put in any effort? So that's my take on equality and equity. Things like affirmative action are disempowering and patronizing. Affirmative action is political activists viewing you as a person who's incapable of providing for himself, incapable of accommodating his own needs, who's dependent on him or her to take care of you, and that without them being the teacher in the classroom and making things fair and easier for you, you will get nowhere in life. And that's what I absolutely hate about political activists. They love to feel really, really important, and I have to do my best to be politically active, otherwise my supporters will land in the gutter and will get nowhere. You are actually disempowering your constituency by presuming that without you, they will get nowhere in life, that they are helpless and incapable. They are trying to empower themselves by disempowering their supporters, because it's all about me, me, and me to socialists and every other form of egalitarian collectivists. They are parasites and demagogues, and you shouldn't fall for it. You are capable, you are strong, you don't need anybody to take care of you, you are competent, and you can provide for yourself. It's the mindset that will get you where you want to be in life, and if you say that you're not where you want to be in life because of those greedy rich businessmen out there who don't pay enough taxes so you can get free stuff, or because of those racist or sexist people, and because you're a victim, that's what's holding you back. Not freedom and not other people. It's your own mindset. It's the mindset of a loser. So that's about it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like if you did. And if you want to know more about self-ownership and voluntarist principles, then stay tuned for more by hitting the notification button and by subscribing to the channel. Stay strong, everybody. Cheers.